This is vlog number 2 of my poker journey, and we are at Cali Grand. Who wants to see some hands? What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time, well, you're in for a treat. Today, we go to California Grand Casino. It's kind of near Concord, California, about 20 minutes away from Oakland. They have a nice little quaint poker room indoors, but unfortunately, due to COVID, all gaming activities have to happen outdoors. So as of right now, they have a huge tent and a huge gaming area. They spread a lot of limit games, and they do have 3-5 and 2-2-3 no limit. If you're thinking about swinging by that casino, just know that they follow all safety protocols. They do a temperature check at the door. They force you to wear a face mask. If you don't have one, they'll provide one for you. They also make sure that you sanitize your hands before you walk into their facility. They have hand sanitizer at the table. Every table is 8-handed for poker, and they have plexi-glass dividers just to make sure nobody else's respiratory droplets get on you. They have a super friendly staff, especially the floor and the dealers. They're very accommodating, and their food is actually pretty good for what you pay for. Great value. One thing to note is if you plan on drinking some alcoholic beverages, California mandates that you have to purchase one full meal for every 2 drinks that you purchase. Overall, I really like this casino. I love the environment. I love the players, the player pool. There's a lot of action, and there's some deep pockets. So without further ado, shuffle up and deal. This video was created for entertainment purposes only. By no means am I a professional poker player. The following video is not intended to teach nor train, but rather to provide a look into my journey. Please gamble at your own risk. Alright guys, so we sit down at a brand new 3-5 no limit game, and for the first hour and a half, we don't pick up any hands. We just fold. It's actually pretty boring. The first hand that we do pick up, they are pocket jacks in the hijack. There's a limp under the gun, and there's an active player under the gun +1 who raises to 25. It gets folded to us, and now we think about 3-betting, but versus an active player, I prefer to take the lower variance route, especially in position, because you want to see as many flops as possible versus players who like to bloat up the pot just in case you hit a hand. Then a lot of the times on later streets, they'll keep on betting big and you can capitalize on those bets. So it gets folded to the small blind calls, the big blind calls, and the under the gun limper calls. So we're going 5 ways to the flop of, that's right, Jack, 6. We just flop quads. Man, this is a great feeling. Like, no worries at all. It gets checked to the under the gun limper, and he bets out 30. Only us and the small blind call. We don't want to put in a raise here because we don't want anybody to fold out any type of draw or ace-high holdings. This is a very dry board except for the flush draw, and we want to make sure that people put their money in. So the turn is the Queen of Clubs. This is a great card. It brings in the flush, and it also brings some Broadway draws. So it gets checked to us. Now we want to put in some money. So we bet 50. And the small blind ships it in for 170. This is a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because we're going to get that 170. It's a bad thing because it kind of kills our action. So the limper, who might not have called the 50 anyways, will probably, definitely not call the 170. But it's okay. Can't get too greedy. So we put in the call. We show our hand immediately. And the board runs out with the 5 of diamonds. She shows over a king high flush. We win. And it actually puts us on the board for the high hand for the hour. Unfortunately, 10 minutes later, somebody hit a 8 high straight flush. We do not get the high hand bonus. We are in the big blind with queen jack off, and it gets folded to the button. The button raises to 20, the small blind calls, and now it's up to us. Once again, this is a perfect 3-betting spot. We should take this opportunity to squeeze, but the button just sat down 15 minutes ago, so we're not too sure where to place him on the range chart. So we choose the lower variance route once again, and we place a call. Now we're 3 ways to the flop, and the flop is Jack 10, 8, 2 clubs. On the flop, it actually gets checked around, so the button caps his range to less than what we have. So we feel pretty comfortable that we have the best hand here. The only person that we might need to worry about is a small blind. But when the turn brings the 3 of diamonds and the small blind checks, now we feel very comfortable and pretty confident that we have the best hand. So we place a bet of $40. The button folds and only the small blind calls. Now we have to think about what the small blind calls here with. Probably calls with all straight draws, with a 9 for the open ender, could be the queen for the gut shot, could be the 7 for the gut shot, and all 2 club holdings. So the river brings down the queen of diamonds, which gives us top 2 pair. Here's the thing though, the small blind leads into us for 125. Watch how quickly we fold.
125.
In this hand, we have king queen off in the small blind. There are 4 limpers, so we raise to $40. Nobody raised pre-flop, so we can safely say that ace king and ace queen aren't in their ranges, which allows us to hit TPTK a lot of the time. Well, we don't thin the field. All 4 call. So let's see what the flop brings us. The flop is king 10-4 with 2 hearts. We check for a little bit of pot control, especially since we're out of position. It gets checked to middle position, who fires out a bet of $50. It gets folded to us, and he has about 350 behind, and we have him covered. There still is 1 player in between us, so we want to make sure that we isolate. It's pretty thin value, but I feel like we're ahead of MP's range, so we make it 150 to go. The person in between us folds, and he thinks, and he makes a call. The turn is the 2 of clubs. This is a great card. Without thinking for very long, we just pile it in since we have him covered. He thinks for maybe about 30 seconds and puts in the call. The river is a great card for us. It's the 4 of diamonds. Pretty much bricks out everything. Pairs the board on the bottom card. We show and we are good. All right, guys, buckle up your seatbelts. Here we go. We got pocket 10s, under the gun +1. We make it 15 to go. Middle position calls, button calls, and now the small blind makes it 55 to go. I think this is the first mistake because the raise should have been somewhere in the range of 90 to maybe 110, especially from the small blind out of position. If he wants to isolate or just squeeze and take down the pot right then and there, should have been a lot larger, but it wasn't. So the big blind calls, we call, middle position calls, and the button calls. So now we're going 5 ways to the flop. The flop is amazing. It's 10-6-3, rainbow. We just hit top set. This is a great flop for us, but there are no draws to get paid off of, so we have to act accordingly. It gets checked to the PFR, and now he fires out a bet of 150. Now this, in my opinion, shows complete strength. He probably has a big pair and wants to make sure that he either gets a lot of money in now or charges all top pairs. There's not very many draws here. I guess there is 4 or 5, but there's not a lot of draws here for him to get paid off. So I think he's targeting all 10s. Now, we can flat here and try to get others behind the call to build up even a bigger pot, but I'd rather get money in now just in case he has, let's say, 10s, jacks, queens, and the turn is maybe an ace or a king. We don't want to slow him down. So we are about 1K effective, and we make a pretty small raise to $350, only $200 more. It allows him to find some perceived fold equity from us, and it's such a good price for him to call. Well, he believes that his hand is the best one, so he piles in, and we snap call. He shows us 2 aces. Now we have to fade 2 outs twice. The turn is the queen of spades, and the river is the 5 of hearts. We fade everything and we scoop in a monster pot. Let's go. There's a raise under the gun to 15. 3 callers in between us. We are on the button and we look down at queen 9 off. I hate to use this term, but we're going to use it. We call because we have pot odds. Now we're going to the flop. The flop is king 10 4 monotone. So we have the second nut flush draw. Small blind leads out for 30. We call. Now we're going heads up to the turn. The turn is the ace of spades. Bink. Now we have the nut flush. If we want a spade, that was the spade to hit. He checks to us, and he's been pretty sticky most of the session. So let's get some money in here. We place a bet of $85. He calls almost instantly. The river is the 5 of clubs. Super safe. We have the nuts. He checks into us one more time. He is about 250 behind. I don't think we can shove all in. That's a pretty strong play to make. So let's try to get some value out of him. He seems like he wants to call, though. So we place a value bet of $185. Thinks about it for about 5 seconds. He places the call. We show, and we win. Now we look down at 9-8 of hearts in middle position. There's an under the gun raise to 25. We call, the button calls, and the big blind calls. So we're going 4 ways to the flop. The flop is 10-9-8, 2-tone board. We just flop bottom 2. It gets checked to the PFR, and he bets $50. We make the call, and now the button ships it all in for 91 total. Small blind folds, under the gun calls, and we call for only 41 more. The turn is the ace of diamonds. Now this is an interesting card. He checks. We have to assess his range. He could have some aces here. If he hit the flush, he probably would have bet. If he has queen jack, he probably would have bet. There's a possibility he hit better 2 pair with this ace, but just in case he didn't, we want to build a side pot and extract some value. Also, because we could be behind the all-in player. So we place a bet of $160, and he calls. The river is the king of hearts. Once again, he checks. Now, it's the same situation as the turn. If we were ahead on the turn, most likely we're ahead on the river. The king doesn't really change much unless he has exactly a hand like king 10 with the king of diamonds. That is a possibility. So instead of value owning ourselves, let's just take it to showdown and see where this goes. We check behind, and surprisingly, we have the best hand against both opponents. Now we look down at ace jack off in the big blind in a straddle pot. There are 3 callers and we check. The flop is ace 6-3 with 2 clubs. We bet 20 to try to thin the field for hands that have complete air. MP calls, cutoff calls, and the button calls. The turn is the 8 of spades. Now this card is pretty safe. We do lose to 2 pairs, but it doesn't bring any straights, and the flush bricked off the turn. So let's place another bet. We bet $50. We do not thin the field. All 3 players call again. Now we're looking for a safe river. There's not that many here, but we might have found the only one, and that is the queen of spades. We feel that we're ahead. We would have seen a lot more action on the flop return if we were behind. The queen of spades doesn't really change the board texture. If someone had ace queen, they probably would have raised pre-flop. So we feel very comfortable placing a bet here, but what's going to really call us? Maybe some ace rags. So let's target all weak aces. We place a bet of $75 and all three fold. We win. All right, guys. Last notable hand, and let's end it on a good one. It's got to be aces, right? It's got to be. So we look down in the small blind with two aces. The hijack raises to 20, the button calls, and we make it 105 to go. The hijack calls and the button folds. So now we're going heads up to the flop of king, queen, 9. This is a good board for our range, but a bad board for our actual hand, and a bad board for us with his range. So we check for a little bit of pot control, and he checks back. Now we're feeling a little bit more comfortable. The turn is the king of spades, and we are pretty confident that he would have fired out a bet on the flop if he had a king. So let's try to extract some value. We bet 105 again. He quickly calls. The river is the 5 of clubs. This is a blank. What can we get value from since he doesn't seem to have much? Well, the only thing I see that we can get value from is a bluff. So let's check it to him and see what he does. We check to bait him to bluff, and he just checks behind. We show, and that's a winner. Alright, vlog number 2 in the books. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It supports the channel, and it motivates me to keep pumping out videos like this for you guys. I do want to give a shout out to my wife. She's been the backbone of this vlog. She does all the creative design, all the templates, all the cards, all the graphics. Couldn't have done it without her. And one last thing, guys. Just remember, don't be stuck like a duck. Run like Usain Bolt. Peace.